Scientists project that sea levels around parts of Florida could rise as much as 8 feet over the coming decades. The majority of Miami-Dade County is roughly 6 feet above the ocean today. And one local artist is doing what he can to sound the alarm. Jeffrey Brown reports from Miami for our ongoing coverage of the intersection of art and climate change and our series, Canvas.
You're at 10 feet, you're at 5 feet, you're at 8 feet, you are at 4 feet.
At a community event in northern Miami, artist and climate activist Xavier Cortada is reminding residents just how vulnerable their homes are. Each number represents how many feet a property sits above sea level. The idea, says Cortada, to make people aware and get them talking in a city where sea level rise is becoming an existential crisis.
It calls out the problem. It literally creates this process where neighbor tells neighbor, these are the facts. This is the quantifiable problem that we have.
His underwater project starts with a visit to this website where participants enter their address and discover their home's elevation. After writing that number on a sign designed by Cortada, residents place them in their own front yards.
That's what my art is about. You invite your neighbor to get in a conversation with you about that, and together you begin to figure out what you can do about it. And enough of that happens, I think we can begin to move the needle on this.
Cortada grew up in Miami, the child of Cuban refugees. His interest in art began at a young age watching his father and uncle paint. As a law student in the 1990s, he became involved in addressing a variety of local community problems, including drug abuse and gang activity, and began to see how art can be part of such efforts. A 2006 fellowship in Antarctica, where he saw up close the impact of climate change, changed his life, and his direct commitment to using art as a tool of activism. By 2022, he'd become the inaugural Miami-Dade artist in residence.
I think art plays that role, and I think artists are thought leaders. I don't think they're decorators. I don't think they're object makers. I think they help frame and invite society to see and approach things.
A painter, sculptor, and University of Miami professor, his objects tell a story of rising seas, as with these concrete elevation sculptures, which he places in public parks across Miami. Always, he wants to reach people where they are.
I think that's the kind of area where Xavier's work is really important.
Jennifer Posner is director of programs for the University of Miami's Climate Resilience Academy, which supports research and solutions to address climate challenges.
He's able to reach communities in a way that brings attention to this and makes them aware of what's coming in an approachable way, in a way that they can kind of connect with.
She says art projects like Cortada's are especially important to reach the communities most vulnerable to climate change.
The fact is that the communities that are most in need, that have been historically the most disadvantaged, overlooked, are the ones that are experiencing the challenges of climate change the most acutely. I think it's one thing when we see maps on the news that say, in 20 years, we're all going to be underwater. He's been so successful in making these really hyper-local connections for people. Where do they live? How high is their elevation? And what does that mean for them?
Our planet is in a little bit of trouble.
A critical part of Cortada's work, connecting with younger generations. On this day at a summer camp at a school in Miami's North Bay Village. Here, the message was in the form of a mural.
This is the elevation, the feet above sea level of your school.
Taking it all in, 18-year-old Ezekiel Salvon and 13-year-old Alan Diaz.
These signs, when you see kids more engaged, the parents will be more engaged as well, and it overall just help like what's going on in our community.
Art to me is like a way to like express yourself and like how you feel and like your thoughts. So I believe that it was like a great way to portray that.
Cortada well knows the political and other tensions over climate change and possible solutions, but he avoids that framing.
Framing this as a partisan issue isn't going to solve the problem. What I'm trying to do is let your neighbor from another party across the street understand that it's black and white. It's the elevation of your home. Science in many ways should be the owner's manual for this planet, that it shouldn't be politicized, because Antarctica doesn't care who you're voting for, it's still coming.
Jennifer Posner, who works with a wide variety of community groups and government officials on climate resiliency efforts, believes artists can make an essential contribution.
artists, as usual, are sort of ahead of the curve in this way. And this is going to be a very helpful entry point for policymaking.
And for Xavier Cortada, it's personal.
The son of Cuban refugees who've seen their entire island and governance and nation fall apart, and understanding that the only place I've ever called home will not be here. Within a century.
He hopes soon to have thousands of yard signs and several hundred elevation sculptures across Miami-Dade County. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown in Miami.